On Monday, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, along with several European leaders, will go to Washington for talks with US President Donald Trump. Is peace any closer, or will Ukraine be made a proposal it cannot accept? Well, to talk about it, we are joined by Tomáš Nagy, Senior Research Fellow for Nuclear, Space and Missile Defense at GLOBSEC. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, President Donald Trump claims big progress has been made on the Russian issue. Now, given the lack of any major decisions during the summit in Alaska, what could he be talking about? Are these security guarantees we've been hearing about?
Well, with regards to that question, there are probably a number of things that were to be mentioned. First and foremost, the fact that we know what the Russian maximalistic objective technically is for sure. They have been stipulated in great details. There have been a lot of thought about this in the past 3 years, but now it seems that at least the American side has it on paper. That's one thing, that they seem to have a good understanding what Russia is pushing for. And that would help them position their own views, but also to guide both Ukraine and Europe through the process that they envisage to be in some kind of moderator position. The other thing, as you mentioned, is the element of security guarantee, which is a novelty, and obviously from a European perspective, that seems to be a very positive novelty. Up until now, the Trump administration was pretty hesitant to talk about burden sharing when it comes to security guarantees. This is probably the first formal mentioning of that, and the fact that it's happening in a very formal manner, it should be encouraging, because that's a sign that the US is not really moving completely out of the process. Obviously, it's tailoring the process to its own like, and the way how they would prefer to have it, which is not exactly maybe how Ukraine wants to see it and how Europe wants to see it. But it's certainly a positive side that US is committed to continuing the process and also taking some kind of stakeholdership role in this process. I don't think that we actually know how this and when this war is going to end. We know what the Russian maximalistic objectives are. They are not really surprising, what we heard in Alaska. But obviously, at this point, we know almost with certainty that the war is not going to end exactly in terms how Russia would want it to end.
I just wonder whether you're not a bit too optimistic about these security guarantees, because earlier we've heard some reports that Russians would like to see China as the guarantor of peace in Ukraine. Moreover, Donald Trump has already excluded sending any American troops to Ukraine. So, well, and just to add to that, Polish foreign minister also seems quite skeptical about it. Well, so far, Russia has no intention of meeting in a trilateral format, says Volodymyr Zelenskyy. He also added that because of this fact, more pressure should be imposed on Russia. More sanctions should follow. Now, do you think that after this red carpet reception in Alaska, Donald Trump will be keen on imposing more sanctions? Marco Rubio claims that there's little use in sanctions at all.
Well, I think the U.S. will seek to position itself somehow in this whole process. The optics of the meeting in Alaska were, from a European perspective, pretty unfortunate. The red carpet thing, the very casual manner of the discussion between the two leaders, that is not really sending a very positive vibe to Europe. That you're certainly right with that. We don't know what exactly happened in the official setting in the room. Hopefully European leaders will know that in great detail tomorrow. They have been briefed to some extent already. We don't know whether there's a convergence between what we have seen and what actually happened in the room. That's one thing. The second thing is that we have seen this tit-and-tat moving in one direction to another direction from President Trump a number of times in the past. It happened that he happened to have a very from European perspective, a successful summit in Hague, and now we see a very different thing. It might happen that when he will be meeting Europeans and Ukrainians, we will be again more positively minded. So I wouldn't be that much focusing on how the optics looks. I admit that it's not always looking good, but also the fact that we have not just the Ukrainian president in Washington tomorrow, but it comes with the great support of Europe. I think that will produce a very positive momentum in the negotiations. That's really a sign to the US that both Europeans and Ukrainians understanding this is a continental issue. It's not just a minor issue for us. This is really the generational thing when it comes to our security. And the US is a NATO member. It's a stakeholder in European security. I understand that the Trump might have its own objectives and also the administration itself. But at the same point, even if there's a bad deal or there's a push towards the bad deal, it's going to have a negative impact on the US on the mid and long term. So I think the administration is aware of this. They are approaching this from a very different position as we do, Europeans. Both in terms of geography, the situation is different. Also in terms of how they read Russian intentions is different. That's kind of defining their position. And that's defining how they approach these negotiations. But I wouldn't be so pessimistic just by making a judgment on what we have seen in Alaska. There are a number of positive things that are playing out, and everyone seems to be moving in a position where we are giving a negotiations a chance. We will know probably in a week time whether this whole process will lead to somewhere. It might be the case that in a week from now we won't be putting that much hope into any kind of negotiated diplomatic settlement, because we will know that this is not moving anywhere.
Now, that's the point, because U.S. Special Envoy for Russia and Ukraine, Steve Witkoff, when he talked today about the summit in Alaska, he said, quote, the point was that we began to see some moderation in the way they are thinking about getting to a final peace deal. Now, there's moderation from the Russian side, okay? Where do you think this sudden change of approach comes from? And if there is a sort of a weakness in Russia, shouldn't Europe, along with the US, exploit it?
Well, I think that there was always a Russian preference to come to the table, to have a big summit, to showcase that, Russia is a global power and that with the US is really making the final decisions about this conflict. Timing itself is really interesting. We see, if you look at the situation on the battleground, that seems to be fairly more positive to Russia than it has been over the course of the past year and a half or even more. So that could be a moment that might have motivated the Russians to go in. But obviously, I'm not an economist, but you see increasingly the voices that the war is actually having its toll on the Russian economy more and more. We have been hearing this for 3 years, obviously, but at some point it might be actually true. And we don't know what are the internal factors that are pushing Putin to slightly modify his position and maybe test that maybe this might be the time when he can get some of his objectives in a different place, not just on the battleground, but maybe shortening the route via diplomatic engagement. I am skeptical that Russia would be successful in reaching its maximalistic objectives. Some of those claims that they have made are simply not realistic, and there is an understanding that you cannot really have everything. It has been said by U.S. administration officials that everyone needs to make compromises, including the Russia. I think what Witkoff has said that there's a softening in terms of their approachability, the fact that they are willing to talk. But in terms of substance, as you have indicated, they haven't really changed that much. And that would need to happen unless we are not going anywhere with an economic negotiations.
So there's a light in this long black tunnel. The question whether it's not a fast approaching train. Tomáš Nagy, Senior Research Fellow for Nuclear, Space and Missile Defense at GLOBSEC, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great evening.
Thank you, and thank you for watching. That would be all for now. Have a great evening too.